Movies, TV shows, and impending starvation.
Certain death.
Senselessly waste the gift of life with these bozo cucks. Check for traps in Lockdown.
This is not the Check for Traps podcast. This is now the Plague Lockdown podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Alec.
I'm Rueben.
And today we're reviewing Children of Men, which is a movie that Cuarón adapted not only from a book that he didn't read, but from a single-page synopsis of that very same book, which shows, one, how little of a shit he gave, and two, what a creative genius he is. This is one of my favourite movies. I think that we're all pretty big fans of it. We thought this would be a good pick for our bunker movies, considering it shows a world completely without hope, but then kind of earns its hopeful ending. How did we all enjoy Children of Men?
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah, I hadn't seen it since I was, maybe since about 2009 or something like that. So it's been a long time since I've seen it. I thought it was excellent. There's so many little tidbits and hidden bits of trivia in the background, and excellent film, I think.
Yeah, I think I first watched it about 2 years ago by comparison. It was one of those films that loads of people watched when they were having their sort of burst of cinema, like we all did, but I somehow just completely missed. Enjoyed it as much, if not more. Lots of it still feel incredibly pertinent. I was saying to Rueben about how it feels way more contemporary than loads of films do from 2006 and before and after. Sure. I also wonder if Cuarón read only a page synopsis of Prisoner of Azkaban.
I bet he insisted upon it.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm not reading this shit.
I refuse.
One of the big differences from the first time I watched it, where I was just like, cool, everyone's naffed off because of the infertility crisis. Whereas this time I noticed there's like hundreds of other little horrible events that happened as well, like Russia blow up Kazakhstan with a nuclear warhead. Africa gets horribly irradiated due to the fallout of said nuclear explosion. A dirty bomb goes off in Munich. There's mass suicides. There's some kind of extremist thing to do with Prince Charles as well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no, it was
what?
really good. I liked the one bit that stood out to me last time and this time was like the really grim bus or train tram television advert where it's like all the different cities and how they've fallen, and it's only Britain soldiers on. I thought that one felt very sort of Brexity. It was really
it's
good.
very stiff upper lip.
That really reminds me of that speech that Johnson did in February where he's talking about how only Britain will stand apart from the rest of the world and not have a lockdown, and he compared us to Clark Kent taking off our glasses.
Don't remember that, but I bet that's aged really poorly.
Yeah, right. Aged like milk right there.
I read something today. I was doing a bit of research, and I thought you guys, being the smarty pantsers that you are, would really enjoy this. Aaron, you mentioned Francis Fukuyama, the End of History guy, in the 12 Monkeys review. He really loves this movie and feels that it's really, really pertinent in the time that we live in, which I thought was interesting because I know that he'd walked back his kind of end of history thing since writing that book. But I mean, how far back can you walk back your thesis before it becomes kind of embarrassing?
Well, I was going to say, I think Fukuyama's a victim of his own success in as much as it's all he'll be remembered for. And it's also something that he's repented on. But yeah, no, loads of people really rate this film. The one I was saying to Rueben while we were watching it is obviously Mark Fisher, God rest his soul, loved this film. Mentions it at the very beginning of Capitalist Realism. I think it's the opening diatribe. And yeah, no, looking at it, I was like, yes, this is. You can see why. And again, I think that's why it's aged so well. I think it's portraying a really interesting version of the future. Yeah, with so many lovely details put in. One that we noticed at the end was that he's wearing obviously fake because it hadn't been made yet, but he's wearing a London 2012 Olympics hoodie, which was already booked in advance at that point in 2006 as going ahead, but obviously hadn't gone ahead. And I was just like, the lovely little attentions to detail there, like how the world functions, with at the end when the Aloe Akbars are going off, way that there's
I love that
the refugee camp, but it's actually more of a penned-in ghetto where they're basically free to do whatever they want and they just patrol the outskirts trying to keep them in. It's like the lovely sort of duality between what the society is preaching at them is going on and what is actually going on.
I think one of the things that I really loved about it, well, actually this was something I didn't really get about it when I first watched it, but the more I watch it, the more I really love, is that it was kind of billed to me, or at least I got the impression it was going to be a bit of a sci-fi thing. And even though it does feel like it's in the future, one of the reasons it has aged so well is they've done very little to change what the aesthetic of the world is. I mean, they're there's still people walking around really grubby streets. They still wear suits and ties and shit. There's just, you know, some advances in the technology of how like advertisements are delivered to you and stuff. Oh god, it just seems like perennially contemporary, and I love every minute of it, man.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point about the how far society's leapt forwards, or not leapt forwards, I guess is more the point. So a lot of sci-fi films obviously go too far, don't they? Like there's going to be, it more or less is exactly the same, except the car has a little heads-up display thing on it. But we have that now anyway.
But it's like, it's really less is more, isn't it? Because when they're crashing and the HUD display is going nuts, that seems really visceral and real, but it's not like, you know, a tripod from War of the Worlds appearing over the horizon. It's just he's so good, and when he talks about it, he really seems to get what's so good about it. And when I was listening to him talking to the BFI about this movie today, and when people say, you know, the basic cliched things that we're saying now about how, oh, it was really, really, your vision of the future was actually really right on with regards to, you know, populism and increased nationalism and things like that. He actually really refused the compliment, because they were saying the populism, the nationalism, and the climate crisis that we're encountering. And he was like, listen, you know, when I made that movie, everyone worth their salt was warning about those things happening within this time scale. You know, this stuff hasn't come as a surprise, and has been made the bulk of predictions for the future for about 25 years now. It's a very humble guy.
Yeah, I think the only thing that perhaps he was slightly, probably accidentally prophetic on was the increased migration crisis from the Arab Spring into Syrian civil war, etc. I guess that's one thing that's been really exacerbated, and obviously in the film it's because of most of the rest of the world has been rendered either uninhabitable.
Obviously, Prisoner of Azkaban was a bit of a meal ticket for this guy. Then moves into Children of Men. Really, really reversed fortunes there, man, because obviously, very good big paycheck with Prisoner of Azkaban. Makes Children of Men, flops insanely hard.
Oh, really?
Then spends the next 5 years trying desperately to get Gravity made, which was a movie he had on the table before Children of Men. And then when that came out, it was like a bounce back moment. And he's referred to these 5 years as being like, or however many years it was, as being quite intense and not pleasant, and easily the worst period of his entire life.
Jesus Christ, I didn't realize it was that bad for him. I thought he just took a break. I thought he was just like, I've made a really great film, I'm going to focus on my family, and I'm going to go back and make some Hollywood bullshit. That's really
interesting that it failed so like financially, because it's a fantastic film and it's quite well budgeted, really. Like there's I guess practical effects and stuff are amazing, aren't they?
I guess you were saying it might be having more of like a cult following. I don't actually know how widely seen this was at the time. I mean, I didn't see it at the time.
We were saying, weren't we, like it's one of those films that most people I think have never watched. Like most people I know won't have heard of this film, I don't think.
It was released in late September in the UK, which isn't the best time for a miserable, really long film about the destruction of mankind.
Very true.
And on Christmas in the United States, when again people are particularly interested in going to see a nearly 2 hour long film about the destruction of mankind.
Do you think the studio execs fucked this one over then?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's releasing it in Christmas kind of makes sense, because you kind of want them to be like, oh, you know, it's about faith and redemption and stuff. And also around Christmas, there's always what I refer to as the dad films, where they release something like, you know, Bridge of Spies or The Post. Something that is fine and is mainly there so that your dad can watch it on demand, or, you know, or the dad can go and do that on his own.
I think that some really, really out of touch kind of Rain Man savant in the marketing department clocked onto the fact that it was in itself a kind of perverted nativity story, and decided that for that reason they could release it at Christmas. And now I'm thinking that I wonder, there must somewhere in America be an unfortunate church group that, having been fans of at least maybe the author who was a Christian, thought, why don't we all go out and see Children of Men?
Maybe they were a fan of the psalm that it was named after. They're like, man, let's go see that psalm, yeah.
Yeah. And you can just imagine Phyllis and her church group going, oh, do you want to come and see that film they've made about my book? And they're coming out being like, oh my god.
There was a few too many Alo Akbars in there, if you ask me.
Yeah. Phyllis is immediately excommunicated.
Where did the PLO inside Bexhill get all that green dye to make all their lovely bandanas?
I like to think they found a big co-op banner from...
Just ripped it up.
They ripped up the co-op banner into their PLO banners.
I thought with the Fishes, the terrorist group, they do go from being portrayed as kind of like idiot, right-on activists in a van to paras. I was going to say,
the next time you see them, they are a paramilitary. I do agree. They really amped it up.
It does escalate quickly.
And it's not even like it's a different sect of them. Like, it's still the dreadlock guy and the other guy.
And still glasses dude. Yeah, because they get him in the van, and they're just talking nonsense at him and just repeating their little phrase. And then they've killed Julian, and then they've blown up wall in Bexhill and are running around in like Rainbow Six gear, taking on tanks.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty big escalation because again, like you said, like when they're introduced with like the bagging thing, like they're not like to be feared. He's like, he's like, your breath fucking stinks.
He's like, no,
I think it might have made a bit more sense if it was rather than the exact same fish that we saw
it could have
earlier
been like
on,
the
if
actual,
it was a different,
the serious people.
yeah, the branch of the fish that live in the horrible squalor ghetto that are a lot more militarized.
I suppose what they wanted was they needed it to be a character that you recognise from earlier, so they could have had like the hardcore fishes that you guys are thinking about. They could have had, yeah, those really good ones, and then like tagging along behind them, tripping over and getting his ass kicked really quick. Could have been like Chewette Ejiofor, who could then deliver the monologue.
Big shout out to Sid, MVP. Same as the last time I watched it. I said to Ruben,
yeah, he's a great
Googled
character,
the actor who played Sid to see if he'd been in other things. Answered, not really. Very sad.
He's in Tyrannosaur, which is very good. The film that launched Olivia Colman as a serious actress.
I've not seen Tyrannosaur. I have seen Olivia Colman. I like
Just
her.
about, or in stuff.
Aaron, I recommended Tyrannosaur to you, and you said, "Oh, what's it about?" I said, "It's about a man with uncontrollable rage." And you said, that sounds good.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'm in.
I feel weird. I wrote the 3 shittiest dad jokes I was capable of for this review, and now I feel like it's not the vibe to drop them.
Oh, drop.
All right, cool. I'll do the first one.
I was gonna say, let's meet them out. Like, drop one in, then we'll talk for a little bit.
Emergency dad joke number 1. What do you get when you cross aspiring gay dads with multiple successful adoption applications?
What do you
Children of Men.
Children of men.
You walked into that one, Ruben.
Well, yeah, you need to be set up for these things. It's like telling a not luck joke and then not telling the punchline.
Is the punchline for all of these just Children of Men?
I choose to not.
Don't look behind the curtain.
We'll find out when it gets to pun number 2. Something I thought was really great about this film was the cinematography. They do a lot of those long shots, don't they? Which are obviously a lot more popular now, stuff like 1917 and things like that. But yeah, a lot of the wide sweeping shots and the shots where they're doing like a handheld camera and following the protagonist around the exploding city. I thought that was awesome. I love a bit of that. It always comes out pretty well.
When people talk about the Wanners, they're always on about the big one at the end, which makes sense. It's got all the moving parts and the special effects and stuff. But I think the one in the car is better.
It's fantastic. It really is. I was thinking
It's
that.
really good.
Because
But where Julian gets shot.
yeah, because it starts off with just
Yeah.
them having a lovely time, and then it all gets so stressful so quickly, and not being able to cut away from that, I thought was very good.
My favorite Wanner, actually, if we're disregarding like the obvious last one, he fucks with all the cars and then they go down the hill because it's just you can just see it. I wouldn't want them to have shot that scene in any other way, and you can see them pursuing in the background and running and losing ground, and then like the cars like rolling down the hill and shit, and it's just fucking really intense, man, and it's really gratifying when they kind of pull away.
Yeah, I love the amount, like the ridiculous things dependent on the first pregnant person in ages, like the just 2 cars and their shitty fucking engines and like one hill and a couple of dogs. It's fantastic.
The dogs aren't even guard dogs; they're just normal dogs.
They just run past
just
him because
someone's
they're
collie
just
dogs,
excited. I love that bit. Again, like that's sort of like what codified the fish as like slightly incompetent. It's like they don't have attack dogs; they just have like collies.
Yeah, because it kind of I feel like the whole film doesn't until right at the end when it all goes a bit big budget finale. It does just feel like a lot of people just kind of bumbling along and trying to make the best of it, which goes to its advantage. Because I think like as soon as the army turn up, I think the film starts to lose its way a bit. And I'm not a huge fan of all the stuff in the refugee camp anyway.
I get what you mean. I mean, I think the army. I really like the army stuff. I do think it didn't have to be the army. I think it easily could have just been what we already see, like quite heavily militarized police force that were patrolling the camp already.
2 gangs or something.
But I would still have wanted that scene even if it had just been the police. I think it might have even been more moving with the police camp guard. I will say one thing is, they do start off a bit sort of 12 monkeys in their incompetency, which then makes it harder to feel like they are a legitimate combatant to the police and army and Islamists. When it gets down to it.
I suppose they do get wiped out immediately, but it just feels very sudden, like it's all very much like like he kills Sid with like a car battery,
yes,
and and stuff like that, and then suddenly everyone's got assault rifles and the harnesses, and everyone seems to have become very smooth very quickly. Before everyone's like kind of broken and just sort of like the world's falling apart, so we've just all started smoking again, and everyone's like hanging around tables and doing a lot of rah-rah-rahing, or just sitting alone in rooms and smoking a huge amount of weed. Also, I did like Sid's weird disguise where he's just like, I need to sneak into this place. I know, I'll dress like a sultan.
Yeah, fantastic.
Tea towel in his head.
Nights, Arabian days. Is that a
Rocking for his
baby?
camel.
Sid is an incredible character, and every scene he's in makes you feel incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's
very
the
uneasy.
perfect way to write someone who's going to turn on you, because it's like someone you have to trust. You would never trust in any other situation.
Yeah.
Even just with Michael Caine's introduction, like when you see him call him a fascist pig, and like the instant regret in Clive Owen's face when he does, and he reacts so poorly, or
Keep
pretends
saying
to
it.
react so poorly.
Clive Owen's very, very bad day, and he continues to get worse from that moment on. It's like a long weekend, actually, isn't it?
One hell of a weekend.
Clive Owen's very bad.
I mean, he asks
Airbnb
his
break.
boss. He says to his boss at the beginning, "I'm not feeling too good. The little shit Justin Bieber kid died, and now I want to go home."
Baby
Oh, I got
Diego.
that as like him being like, "Oh fuck this, everyone else is miserable. I want to go home."
I don't think he's just lying, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he's just like
yeah.
bollocks. Oh yeah, I feel. Oh, baby Diego. Wow.
And then, like 36 hours later, he got shot.
Yeah,
Isn't it
bleeds to
little
death on a
fucking
boat, Bexhill of all places.
If Children of Men, if I were to add one scene to it, it would be you smash cut back to the office and Clive Owen's boss is just like tapping his watch. Like, when is this
We've all got over baby Diego by now.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't that beloved.
Yeah. I'm quite impressed we've got this far without mentioning Michael Caine,
Oh yeah.
the aged, like ex-political cartoonist now, Mr.
Running a
Happy.
grow up.
Yeah.
Pull my finger.
Pull my finger. What a great death scene.
Applying all the weed to the refugee camp. I like Michael.
It sounds a bit macabre, but I really like that they didn't just shoot him in the face. Like, he's doing the pull my finger thing, and they like torture him. It's brutal. Shoots him in the hand, or blows his famous finger off.
His famous finger.
Famous finger.
Because Jasper poisons
Go on,
himself and the dog. Not himself, so his wife and the dog.
Yep.
When he sees them coming. So he knows that the fish is a terrible, horrible bastards. But no one else seems to.
I think it's because, remember, his plan was to mislead them. Oh, sorry.
It
Yeah.
doesn't- like, that plan fails immediately because they find the map that.
Is it because he is so cynical?
I assumed it was more that because he's just seen the baby and is like, holy fuck, this chick's pregnant, has obviously suddenly realised that the people who are coming for the only child that's about to be born in 18 years are probably quite full on.
Okay. Full on.
I must admit,
There's full on, and then there's they
doesn't
will.
work though because they're going to Bexhill and it's like, oh, they are. Yeah, you're right. Well done, Patrick.
I mean,
That
there's
is true.
full on, and then there's like reconciling the fact that they're going to kill me, my wife, and my dog, and preemptively killing my wife and my dog beforehand.
Something that did frustrate me actually about that scene is the characters stay to watch him get killed, which is really, it doesn't make any sense. Like if someone sacrifices themselves so that you can escape, don't stand there and watch them sacrifice themselves.
That's why I kind of
Like that's time
no
they
one
could be
really knows
escaping.
what they're doing. Like because technically if he was a super suave, let's get this guy out of here thing, as they keep referring him to at the start, you keep saying he's suave, he would drive off, but he's not. He's just a dude. Like a cynical he's just a cynical guy who works in an office, and his best friend is about to die, but he doesn't know that. And also, I think also it would be really jarring because the whole way through the film, the camera just sticks with Theo. It would be weird if it then just followed Jasper for a bit.
Yeah,
Like,
they clearly wanted to just have his reaction to it. I agree it's a cliche, and I don't like it. There is no logical reason why he should do it.
Should have shown it in like the reflection of the wing mirror or something, right? So at least it looks like they're going
Those are
away
good
rather
wing
than just
mirrors.
like.
It was like because there's a bit in when they first get to Jasper's house where the actual scene is happening in the background, out of focus, and the camera is just on Clive Owen in the foreground, who is in shadow because the camera does just follow him. And I just think it would be very strange if the camera then was just with Michael Caine.
No,
Because
I
I
can
quite like the
appreciate
way that it's shot up on a hill because it's with Clive Owen, it's with Theo hiding, and again is a little bit out of focus and a bit blurred. It makes it seem a lot more like genuine and real because you're seeing all of it at once.
I think it's probably one of those situations where they definitely knew that this didn't make total sense, but they probably weren't willing to sacrifice what is such a good, death scene and reaction, so just decided to roll with it.
They did the test, right? It's like it bends reality, but it doesn't break it, so perfect.
I would like to take this opportunity to eke out the second and by far the worst of the dad jokes.
Yes.
So the popular early noughties boy band Boys to Men, all of their teenage sons have actually gotten together and they've got their own boy band now. Do you know you know what the name of their debut album is?
What's it called?
It's actually going to be called Children of Men.
Oh!
That was so bad and obvious. I thought it was going to be a reversal where it was a different.
No,
answer.
I just am.
That's no, not even no. That's fantastic. That's dedication to the bit.
Rueben, do you want to fire off some of your differences between the book and the movie?
Right, yes. There's a number of differences between the film and the book. The ones that really stand out to me are that elderly and infirm citizens have become a burden to society, and nursing homes are only for privileged few people, and the rest of them are expected and sometimes forced to commit suicide by taking part in the quietus, the poisoning, and they're forced to do that at age 60, which obviously isn't present in the film. Some other crazy ones are that this is probably my favourite one actually. Due to the global infertility of mankind, newborn animals such as kittens and puppies are doted upon as infants, pushed around in prams, and dressed in children's clothing. The latest trend in London is to have an elaborate christening ceremony for your newborn pet. How wild.
I do love that like society is like barely functioning on to the point where there could be new trends, but they'd be like really miserable. It's like the repenters and the redeemers or whatever they were called, like the two different. They're having that conversation about the two different presumably of many sects of people.
And in the book as well, the Theo's cousin, the really rich guy who has the Michelangelo's David and everything, he's a lot more prevalent of a character in the book. Obviously, he's only in it for a short amount of time.
That's really interesting because I'd say his scene is one of the best in the film. I fucking love that scene. I wonder what else he does. Does he have even more priceless artworks? Like... So
his name is Zan Lipiot, which is got a very unusual spelling. Anyway, so Zan Lipiot, who is Theo's rich and charismatic cousin, appoints himself the Warden of England in the last general election.
What?
As people have lost all interest in politics, Lipiot abolishes democracy. He's called a despot and a tyrant by his opponents, but officially the new society is referred to as egalitarian.
Because in this he's called Nigel.
Yeah, I also don't think he's the ruler of the country.
No, and he likes paintings.
He definitely isn't. But he is Theo's rich and charismatic cousin.
That's interesting.
Is that not what was that?
Yeah,
Nigel?
I think he's a brother in this, isn't he?
Oh, is he?
I mean, it's still the same. He presumably has the same sort of like archetype of like he's the character that shows us the more affluent part of society. I thought he was just like a high-ranking civil servant in this or something.
I thought he's like a sponsored art salvager. Like the British government is flying around the world nicking art from these destroyed countries, and he's like in charge of it. He keeps them all in Battersea Power Station.
He's a boomer. He's stealing the art. He's living a decent life, and he really loves prog rock.
Lovely shot of Battersea Power Station, which now is like a Doom fortress. I do think because with the Battersea Power Station thing, like the film does have a very distinct visual language, and that is everything is grey and terrible, and it felt a bit like Rueben vision of what London would look like. Where
you should say that.
We said that exact same thing, didn't we?
Like everything is just covered in filth and graffiti and like neon.
Things explode. There's prostitutes everywhere. It's like whenever I leave Whitchurch, this is exactly what I envision.
Because it seems strange to me in a police state where everything is illegal. Surely littering is super illegal.
I think the thing is the police is like it is a police state, but it's a police state where the police are stretched so thin. Like there are bandits roaming the countryside. Like
yeah, that's true.
They're right. They're on it immediately somehow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But that's because they dedicate all their time to that. They're not. They're not also going around being like, oh, that man's littering.
This is the most original gripe anyone has ever
Pick
had.
up that can, citizen.
No, it's really interesting. My answer, I'd stick my flag in, is just that like littering is no longer considered that big a deal. Like
but they just shoot you, right?
Well, no, they wouldn't though, because it's not. That's what I mean. There's like the air of civilization. They're pretending that it's civilized. Like you're allowed to do things. You know, people go to their boring office jobs. There's still cafes open, barely, but it's not like if you're a good citizen, or even if you're like just a mild citizen, you won't be punished. It's the
it just feels like if you're having some sort of weird just fully fascist society, it feels like people would be complaining about the rubbish enough that it's like people complain about the rubbish now, and we're only quasi-fascist. Like if we went to
but that's because we're not dealing with banditry. It's the opposite. Your perspective shift, I think, is the idea. Is like people no longer care about the rubbish. They want to make sure the bandits outside London aren't like pillaging.
Yeah, there's only so many gripes that you can bring.
Do you think the bandit attack on the road to Canterbury is a reference to Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales?
Oh, definitely. Very, very deliberately so. I think it evokes the Chaucerian legendarium.
Speaking of great works of literature, does anyone want to hear my third
Go on
joke?
then.
I mean, Canterbury Tales was all about shit jokes, so I'm in.
You are the Chaucer of our time. So
I wonder if he's going to get
I'm-
captured by the French for many years as well.
Almost certainly. So, what is the difference between my sex tape and Children of Men?
Well, the answer to
know
this one
what's the
can't just be
difference.
Children of Men. I'm really adrift right now.
Your sex tape is more accurate to the book?
The answer is one stars, among others, a dishevelled, hopeless Clive Owen and depicts a brutal dark trudge through a nightmare where childbirth is not possible and has overt references to the music of Pink Floyd. And the other one is Children of Men.
Fantastic. Actually fantastic. You
You
floored us there, because that was actually a really good one.
I was thrown there because like Alec immediately jumped in with what would have actually been a really good punchline. And I was like, oh shit, I'm worried about this.
Sorry, just can't help it.
No,
mate.
that's all right.
Are there any other weird policies we think the warden has implemented or doesn't seem to give a shit about? I think it's really interesting that like they've converted like the railway platforms at the train station that he's at into just like a series of pens. It seems like nearly every public space has become a series of pens.
Definitely.
Well, they didn't want the extras wandering off and getting into the craft. So that was actually Clive Owen's demand, was that all the extras are caged.
They
so
keep
don't come and
touching
touch
me.
him. Yeah, I did wonder what the giant cages of refugees were for. Like, they were very, like, a visual language. You think, like, so you take them to Bexhill, they get off the bus, they're in the camp, and then you put them in a big cage for a bit.
Yeah.
What's that
I-
about? Just put
There
them in
seems to be there's a lot of big cages, and they have to all be like purely transitory cages because you can't store anyone in these cages long term.
I think some of them were like just like a reference to Abu Ghraib.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Oh, the
It's-
ones
it's-
inside Beckhill were. But I mean, I'm talking about the ones like there's like some at the train station. There's like that scene where the police dog is barking at him, and the police officer's like saying "Move along," and there's just more people in more cages there as well.
The advert in the bus where it's like anyone could be an illegal immigrant really reminds me of that. Do you remember when Theresa May sent around those vans with migrants go home written on them?
Yes.
And all the stuff about like benefit sheets and stuff where it's like eyes looking. It's like, if you've been misclaiming PPI, we'll fucking kill you. Like,
He's my cousin. He's my brother. It's my mother. No, it's an illegal immigrant.
no, he's a fugee. Kill him.
I mean, the funniest joke of all is you've just reminded me that Theresa May was actually the Prime Minister of this country for a while.
A weird takeaway I came from this film was I really miss pubs because there's a scene in a pub. I'm like, oh god.
no, yeah, wouldn't
Lovely
you just
pub.
fucking love to go for a cider at the
Are
moment?
you saying that you would rather live in Children of Men because at least you could go to the pub?
It's a close
Really,
thing.
really
If they sort
get
the litter
pissed.
problem out.
I reckon if this goes for like if this goes on for another 2 months, I reckon you're gonna be fully like
I'll be down the street campaigning. Children of Men world now.
you'd be like Allo Akbar, Allo Akbar.
I was sort of thinking about like in a world without children, and a lot of people no longer smoke. Like, you know, because Clive Owen smokes, and he always like offering to people.
Yeah, and they riff him for it,
they're all
don't
going,
they?
nah, fuck off. If there's a world without hope, would more people smoke because fuck it, there's no point living, or would less people because you'd want to live for as long as possible because you might be the last person alive?
The other key factor in that is that maybe the reason they're all refusing it is because it's bad for your fertility, and they're all hanging on to that hope.
Oh,
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
maybe.
very nice.
Because I think that sort of the way that films and stuff treat smoking is much more interesting now that everyone's sort of stopping to do it.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever watch that Willem Dafoe vampire film Daybreakers with Ethan Hunt? A big point in that is that because everyone's a vampire, they just smoke all the time because they can't get cancer. And I thought that was really
It's
fun.
really unusual.
I think you'd really enjoy that film, Josh. It's got a very weird take on vampire society. I know you like your vampires. Probably not going to be. A
Would
fan
I
of it.
rather be a vampire in Daybreakers or a person in Children of Men? And I've got to be honest, the vampire is looking pretty sweet.
Vampire can go to the pub.
I mean,
and
until,
smoke.
until the parable comes falling down and the message of the film kicks in. Until then, it seems pretty sweet being a vampire.
Not the message.
Yeah.
Not the consequences of all of these
I
actions.
feel like what this film could have done with, actually, now that I've
A little
think
pickup.
about it, is that would have. I know that we see Nigel in his palace. Would have been nice to see some more, because the film's not subtle, granted, but what's the rich version of ghettos? Gated communities.
Oh yeah.
In the book, it seems like I've just been scanning through the plot, and in the book, it seems like it's much more prevalent, that kind of like juxtaposition between the
Class divide.
ultra wealthy, and especially young people as well. So the people who are the very youngest are called the Omegas, and they have like a bunch of luxuries that everybody else doesn't get to experience, and they're basically immune to all the weird laws because they're so young. Nobody wants them to die because they're like humanity's last hope. And the ending is completely different. It ends up with Theo and the guy who is Nigel, Zan, in the book. They're the ones who have the final duel. So Theo and Zan confront each other and both fire one shot. The sudden wailing of the baby startles Zan, causing him to miss. As Rolf, who is Julian's husband, Rolf thought the baby would not be born for another month. Theo shoots and kills Zan. He removes from Zan's finger the coronation ring, which Zan had taken to wearing as a symbol of authority, and seems poised to become the new leader of the UK, or at least temporarily. The other members of the council are introduced to the baby, who Theo baptizes. So there's no boat or anything.
It gets a bit more high politics in...
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot more about this totalitarian regime and it being indirectly overthrown by
Well, yeah, I mean, killing the king is not. He doesn't quite achieve that in this one.
Yeah,
sure. That is. I mean,
it's very different.
You can tell he read a one-page synopsis, and I think it works in his favour.
I think it was good, but it should have been more like Bright.
Definitely.
With the rich neighbourhood.
Fairy lives don't matter today.
The only thing that I would say about Children of Men is if it could be more like the film Bright and show that juxtaposition, really hammer home.
I'd like a centaur cop like there was in Bright. I think that'd be really good.
In this version, it'd be like a really non-fertile cop, like a really unfertile cop.
Now that we've got that clip of Alec saying, "I want this film to be more like Bright,"
Just put it in
we need
everything.
to take it and stick it in every single review we do from now
Even
on.
ones
I
I'm
wish
not
this
in.
film was more like
Retrospective, Gone with the Wind. I wish it was more like Bright.
yes.
Citizen Kane.
Especially films that I'm not, especially reviews I'm not in, put me in.
Oh yeah.
Saying,
We'll just have, "Hi, I'm Alec. I want this film to be more like Bright," and then we'll say, "Thank you, Alec."
This is your fair warning. In the next review we do that you're not in it, at some point I will arbitrarily say, "And what's your one opinion on this, Alec?" And put that in.
My closing statement on Children of Men is Alec would like it more if he could go to the pub.
It's a great film. I recommend that anyone listening to this who hasn't seen it go and watch it right now. It's very, very good.
It's not like you can go outside. Way. Yeah. I agree.
Exactly.
That's
You've
right.
got nothing else to do.
Except for wash your fucking hands.
Unless you're living in the post-Rona era, in which case, come save us. Take the time machine.
Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. Interlock your fingers.
What
wash
song
the backs
do you
of your
guys
fingers.
sing when you wash
Wash
your
the
hands?
tips of your fingers. I'm seeing nothing but my red raw skin.
No, sing.
Become-
What do you sing?
Oh, what do I
Not
sing?
What do you
What do
see?
I-
Presumably you see your hands.
Yeah, like a vision. What do I sing some "When I'm Washing Windows" by Engelbert Humperdinck, but except it's when I'm washing my
I
hands.
think "Call Me Al."
I sing all 17 minutes of Bob Dylan's Murder Most Foul.
I sing my humps with the Black Eyed Peas, but
So-
just Fergie's bits.
Oh, wow.
I start singing 2112 by Rush when I start washing my hands, and I don't stop washing my hands until I finish
You'd
2112.
have no hands left. You'd be Stubbins, old Ruby Stubbins. Gotta wash my stubs.
We see him like after the pub. He's like holding up 2 pints with like hooks. Like, "Hey lads."
You could have special
I've
like
got
pint
plungers on
holdings.
my stumps to hold the pint.
You could have like cup holders stuck into your stumps.
You could like pump like liquid nitrogen in so it keeps it nice and cold. Perfect.
I would just get a direct pint glass attachment that I could just pour the beer directly into. What's your favourite scene, Aaron? Go.
My
Favourite scene.
favourite scene is when apparently novel version Warden of the UK says that he tries not to think about the end of the world.
Oh, I really vibe with that.
Me too.
What about you guys?
The whole car thing with the camera spinning around inside the car and moving back and forth. That scene's only improved by knowing they filmed it by them being sat on top of the car in a little tent and the camera was like pointed down into it and being moved up and down. It's awesome.
My favourite scene was the scene where Julian gets shot. That's always the scene I remember about this film. It comes totally out of nowhere. It's really great that it's all done in one big smoothish take.
And closing on Children of Men Maestro, Joshua Jack.
And my favourite scene, yes, was when Will Smith killed the fairy and said that his life didn't matter. Thanks for listening.
Bye!
Children's lives don't matter today.